In the first weekend of October, Arsenal beat Man City for the first time in 8 years. And for all the talk of Guardiola's side missing Rodri and Kevin De Bruyne, it's worth noting that the game was decided by Arsenal substitutes. Partey, Takehiro Tomiyasu, Kai Havertz, and Gabriel Martinelli were all involved in the Gunners' game-winning goal. But of those 4 players, not a single one of their names was found in Arteta's starting 11, which illuminates a potential deciding factor in this season's title race: Arsenal's impressive squad depth. And the first place to admire Arsenal's versatility is in their attack. Arteta's front three of Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli, and Gabriel Jesus tore up the league last season, with the trio just 3 goal contributions shy of tallying 20-plus domestic goals and assists each. Jesus' knee injury at the start of this season, however, meant that Eddie Nketiah would occupy the striker role in the meantime, a backup role he relished in last year. And while the 24-year-old academy graduate doesn't have the technical ability and skill that Jesus does, he's acceptably efficient in front of goal and has a lot more comparable underlying numbers with Jesus than you might expect. In a perfect world, Eddie would fulfill his backup duties until the Brazilian was fit again, but Bukayo Saka's latest thigh injury changed everything. Instead of playing Jesus as a striker against Man City, Arteta asked him to fill in Saka's position on the right wing, a role he'd ironically transitioned into during his time with Pep Guardiola. Jesus' tremendous defensive work rate and off-the-ball movement made him a perfect stand-in, which allowed Arteta to start Nketiah at striker right next to him. But Arsenal's left wing is where things really start to get interesting. While Martinelli is clearly the team's most dangerous and rapid direct goal threat down the left side, Belgian Leandro Trossard was signed last January as a reinforcement, and has actually announced himself as one of Arteta's most creative players, racking up the second most Premier League assists on the entire team last season, despite Saka and Odegaard clocking in more than triple his amount of league minutes. While Martinelli excels at exploiting high and wide areas, Trossard is less likely to run in behind and cuts inside more often, a subtle but significant difference that appears when comparing their heat maps. Arteta knew that the only way to contain Man City would be to control the central areas of the pitch, and with Martinelli missing Arsenal's last 2 games with a hamstring issue, it was time to opt for Trossard's creativity on the left rather than the Brazilian's explosiveness. Arteta's prioritization of control would persist into midfield, as he gave Jorginho his first start of the season over fan favorite Thomas Partey. As a regista, Jorginho's primary role is to recycle and progress play from a deep-lying position, a responsibility he executed to perfection during his time at Napoli, Chelsea, and the Italian national team. While Partey progresses play as well, he brings a lot more physicality to the game and is given much more defensive responsibility. This isn't to say that either player is better than the other, it's merely to emphasize that they're different, which is what makes Arsenal's squad depth so important. New signing Declan Rice also offers the defensive dominance that Jorginho doesn't, while Martin Odegaard brings world-class attacking output that no other midfielder in the team possesses either. And that's without even mentioning Fabio Vieira, another midfielder in the Arsenal rotation. The 2-time Portuguese champion signed for the Gunners last season but never really broke into the first team. He's gained much more trust from the manager since and has already started 2 games this year compared to his 3 starts from all of last season. The Portuguese playmaker is actually tied for most league assists alongside Saka and Odegaard as well. Oh, and Kai Havertz, despite social media's commitment to making him the punchline of every joke, is still an attacking midfielder with clear and identifiable traits, the first of which is his sheer size and hold-up play, assets that allowed him to shrug off Nathan Ake before assisting Martinelli's game winner. An undeniable impact coming off the bench, which as far as I'm concerned is the role of a substitute in the first place, a role that Tomiyasu is also fulfilling in defense as well. It's actually kind of poetic that the player whose massive error helped City beat Arsenal last season is the same player who made the crucial run to start the Gunners' game-winning sequence. But as coincidental as Tomiyasu's redemption might seem, it's all a part of a plan, as we can literally see Arteta telling him to stay close to Havertz just moments before Tommy heads the ball in his direction. And Arteta deserves a lot of credit for the victory. He made the perfect necessary game-winning changes after bravely deploying the starting 11 he thought could best neutralize City's central areas, and held the treble winners to just 4 total shots, the fewest attempts a Pep Guardiola side has had in a top-flight game since April 2010. And while Mikel deserves the plaudits for finally beating his mentor, I'd be remiss if I didn't also give William Saliba his flowers for another dominant defensive performance. The 6'4" Frenchman has yet to be dribbled past this season and is making his case for best defender in the league, while further emphasizing the importance of squad depth as well, given that Arsenal's title race last season fell off the rails as soon as Saliba got injured at the end of March, a decline demonstrated by comparing the team's defensive metrics with and without him, which makes sense given that center back is the one position Arsenal don't have strong depth in, although not for lack of trying. Jurriën Timber was signed in the summer with aspirations of playing both right back and center back, but unfortunately ruptured his ACL 50 minutes into his Premier League debut. Either way you slice it, if Arsenal go on to win the league this season, it'll be off the back of an incredibly deep squad, with substitutes ready to make an impact at virtually every position, with some areas of the pitch arguably even overcrowded, as Mikel Arteta makes the penultimate push to finally end the Man City dynasty. If you liked today's video, go ahead and watch another. As always, I'm Andy, first team all sideline.